With Dunkin' Go-Tos, you can get a great deal on two of your favorites, like 2 egg and cheese wraps for $2, 2 bagels with cream cheese spread for $4, and 2 bacon, egg, and cheese croissants for $5. In my opinion, it's a deal that's pretty tough to beat. That's just if you want my go-to cents. If you don't want my go-to cents, it's go too late. Dunkin' Go-Tos, a great deal for $2, $4, or $5. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes.
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening, and welcome to TV Party Tonight, where tonight our favorite show is Doom Patrol, brought to you by the good people at DC Universe, DC Comics, Warner Brothers, Greg Berlanti, and Grant Morrison. Sure. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And joining me on this epic journey of comic book, television, phantasmagoria is the one and only Jesse Starcher, the disapproving dad. How do you do, sir?
My goodness.
I hear you're having fun tonight.
Oh my gosh. Well, luckily, I think that may have we have some of Kira's friends over. Mm-hmm. She's having 3 friends stay the night, and things may have leveled down to a normal.
I feel like every
night.
time your daughter has friends in the house, one of your child loses the digits.
Yeah, man, that was some shit. Luckily, Colton forgave Cass for breaking his finger in the door, but he is fine. He is fine now. Yeah. It's been an interesting day. We'll put it that way. But I'm definitely looking forward to talking about one of the surprise hits off of the DC Universe app. Is that what it's called, the DC Universe app?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. That's what I'll go with. As you can tell, I don't. Let's just say I was borrowing a friend's TV to watch it. How's that? But yeah, Doom Patrol, man. This is exciting. This was a neat series that I did not think would have legs under it, and it fucking took off running.
Yeah, this was not something I was really tremendously interested in. In all honesty, it made the schedule because it was a comic book show, and the Radulich Broadcasting Network tends to try to cover all the comic book shows, as many as we can fit into the schedule. Like Pennyworth.
I mean, there were some gross parts on Doom Patrol, but I might have to really hold back from puking watching Pennyworth.
You're gonna love Pennyworth, and you're gonna be so happy I made you watch it.
Most unexpected hit of the comic book TV season.
It's gonna
Pennyworth.
It's gonna be very punchy.
At your service.
That's right. But enough about Pennyworth. Let's talk about this Doom Patrol. Yeah, I didn't know anything about them. If you go to the source material Doom Patrol show, Chris Sheehan told you all the things about Doom Patrol. When they announced this as a series, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm sure it's one of they can't really do anything with certain properties for DC because they're between the CW shows where they mine a lot of the lesser known characters, and then the DC cinematic universe where they're mining the top tier characters, it doesn't leave a tremendous amount left for this DC streaming universe app. I mean, they've got the Teen Titans that's going into a second season. Swamp Thing's already been canceled, and the first season's not over yet, but that was more of an accounting error. They've got Stargirl, which actually made her appearance in a handful of Legends of Tomorrow episodes. I'm not sure if that's following that iteration or if this is yet another alternate universe. But so when they threw Doom Patrol, which was spinning out of Teen Titans, I was like, nah, it's fine. I'll watch it. I didn't watch it when it was running. I binged it over the past week, And I fell in love with the show. This was a sleeper hit for me. Never knew anything about the comic, never read the comic, wasn't really interested in the show outside of covering it for the podcast, and as it turns out, ended up being really, really good. This was one of those deals where, and we'll talk about this also next week when we do Cloak and Dagger. A lot of the reviewers were like, with the superhero genre, it feels very limiting. Like there's only so much you can do with it because a lot of the stuff falls into the broad appeal, broad base category. But as I tell people, from my father-in-law on down, television is where it's at. Television is where you can experiment with some really far out there esoteric stuff. And boy, did they ever with Doom Patrol.
Yes, they did. Just throwing it back to where you mentioned they had showed up on Titans. I remember when we covered that series, there were 2 or 3 elements that came out of that show that I was like, man, I really liked those episodes. The Doom Patrol centered episodes were fun, and also, and what was funny was I remember Sheehan saying that Beast Boy was on one of the teams. I can't remember which iteration. I don't know if it was the 80s Doom Patrol in the comic. So, here we got Cyborg, which apparently is totally not in line with what the comic book had brought about. But anyway, back to what I was saying. The Doom Patrol episodes of Titans and the Hawk and Dove episodes of Titans were some of the bright spots of that series. So finding out that the Doom Patrol was going to be spinning out of there, I was like, I'm in the same boat as you. No idea about the team. I have no idea as to what to expect. I enjoyed what I saw, but seeing them take that whole team and put a series behind it, I didn't know if it was going to – I really didn't know if it was going to succeed. And man, oh man, they really did hit a home run, I think. I mean, this is one of the best ones that I've seen on the network. Granted, I've only seen Titans. I haven't watched any Swamp Thing yet. I've heard that's decent. But you look at some of the people that run in our circles who have watched this, and they said this is by far really, really good.
So as of right now, I haven't heard anything about them doing a second season just yet. The DC Universe app may not be long for this world. It may
That's what I was going to say. We got to have a platform to put it on first.
I mean, from what I understand, I think a lot of these things are going to be absorbed into HBO Max, which is going to be the Warner Brothers streaming service. So we might see the things pop up there. People talked about Swamp Thing also being saved and renewed once they figure out the filming credits and all of that. It'll just get new life on HBO Max or something like that. I don't know. Teen Titans was renewed for a second season. I think that's actually, unfortunately, there was some bad news about that today. Somebody died while doing a stunt. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I heard about that. It was the production. Yeah. It was the stunt coordinator or production designer or something got some shrapnel to the head because of a car flip or something. It sounded pretty sad.
So more to come on this Doom Patrol series. They certainly left it with the cliffhanger. We'll get to that in a little bit. But let's just, we don't do these episode by episode. We just kind of talk general themes, performances. Let's take these character by character here. Let's talk about Diane Guerrero as Kay Chalice, a.k.a. Crazy Jane, a.k.a. 63 other personalities.
Okay, go ahead and name them all off.
I
here for the next 5 minutes.
I refuse. Wow. First of all, do you know who Diane Guerrero was famous for playing?
No. I was looking her up.
She's Maritza from Our Orange is the New Black.
I have not seen that show, but that my wife could tell you all about that. She'd recognize her.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was her because she gives such a great performance in this. I have to say, everybody, Diane Guerrero, April Bowlby, who is Rita Farr, Jovian Wade, who is this iteration of Cyborg, Alan Tudyk, who has a zillion voice over roles and he plays the villain. Nobody, yeah.
So perfect.
Matt Bomer as the Negative Man, Larry Trainer, and Brendan Fraser really do this is some of their best work out of this entire group. I mean, one thing about this show is these are all there's not a bad performance in the bunch. There's nobody that kind of took me out of the show. I mean, some people are not particularly wazooey over the CW Arrowverse type shows. They think the acting can be a little too soapish, a little too maudlin. And this is out of this is out of the CW verse mold, minus the restrictions for putting it on network television.
Yes.
You know, like saying "fuck" 82 times in an episode.
Oh my gosh, Robot Man, Brendan Fraser's character, and him using the F-bomb precisely when I would. Like, what the fuck?
But aside from, like I said, the overuse of some colorful language and some naughty scenes here and there, I really thought, like, of all the Greg Berlanti shows, this is some of the strongest performances I've seen out of what we've seen so far. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you talk about maybe there. I could take Robot Man seriously to a point, and then sometimes it just felt like he was overdoing it. Brendan Fraser was overdoing it. Now, granted, that might be the way he's written. That might be indicative of the character. Without knowing what came before this in the comics, I can't say that it may very well possibly be a representative of what he actually does in the comic. Always blows things up, and that seemed to happen quite a few times. Blows things out of proportion, or at least is befuddled by his own situation most of the time. But yeah, man, I will tell you that Alan Tudyk by far is one of the best villains I've ever seen in a DC. Probably, man, he's up there, and I mean up there with David Tennant when it comes to Purple Man.
Welcome to the shit show.
I mean, oh gosh. So okay, so we'll set Alan Tudyk aside. I'm giving him an A+. All right. Timothy Dalton, I wasn't. His performance as the Chief was great. I really liked April Bowlby. And her performance as Rita Farr, I believed everything that she did.
Yeah.
Diane Guerrero could just, she had all that. She could play with anything.
Well, it's so funny because she has such a limited role with Maritza. She's a cutesy inmate in Orange is the New Black. She's part of the Hispanic squad of gals. I don't even think she was on the last season. Like, they wrote her character, without getting too much into Orange is the New Black, they basically took a good third of the characters and just wrote them off as having gone to another prison, and the main cast all went to the Max prison that the show takes place in. And so, like, again, she's always been kind of she's a fan favorite, but she wasn't tremendously important to the cast, if I recall. Mm-hmm. And then in this one, she's listed as she's the first person listed in the credits, and she's phenomenal.
Yeah,
she's absolutely. I mean, where she has to go. I mean, granted, a lot of the Crazy Jane stuff is her just being very, very direct and blunt and vulgar. But but like the Jane Patrol episode where you go inside her mind, that needs to be nominated for an Emmy.
Yeah, you really like that one.
It's so good.
Yeah, and an exploration of a person who's trying to deal with all these personalities, and of course they have to kind of show how that operates in her head, which is by far extremely interesting. But the thing that I think 2 episodes in, I sent you an IM. I said, man, this girl playing Crazy Jane is unreal, because she has to switch her acting almost on a dime, and go from completely overbearing and obnoxious to grade A, like, what was the name of, I want to call it, it's Hammerhead, and then we have when she has to turn into the baby, like the young girl that she represents. I mean, she has to do that in one scene.
Yeah,
she has to switch
in one dialogue reading.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are scenes of her talking to Niles, Timothy Dalton's character, where she switches personalities 3 and 4 times, and it's not just a change in accent or cadence or speaking style. She has to like do some physical acting as well, because a lot of times when these personalities take over, she gives a little wiggle, the little shimmy. But no, but I mean, it's just phenomenal, and she really throws herself into the part.
I mean, you got to think about it. Just a normal actor trying to do that and pulling it off and making it believable. That's the tricky part, is to make it believable, to make you believe that this person has 64 personalities in their head and that each one of them has different reaction to the world that's going on around them. It is phenomenal just to even try to comprehend what she's doing. So my hat's off, because that was a very, very good piece of acting. All throughout the series, too. I mean, that was 15 episodes. By the way, I was expecting 10. I was like, I can breeze through this in a weekend. And Mark's like, no, it's 15. I'm like, oh, shit.
And I will tell you, I was not looking forward to having 15 episodes of this, but this is one of the rare exceptions where I'm going to say, you know what, 15 episodes, it needed it.
When have we said that a comic book show needed the 15? Are Flash and Arrow pulling 20s? Is that what they usually do on CW?
Yeah,
like
but there's a lot of breaks, and unless you're like I'm watching Black Lightning right now, but that's only like 15 or 16 episodes.
Yeah, and a lot of times with the Marvel stuff, we're sitting there saying, okay, this could have been 10, but 15 was fine. I didn't have any problem with it.
Yeah, I thought for a show meant for binging, 15 might have been too much. It really needs to be 10 before before it just feels like some of these are filler episodes. But I really feel like his episodic sort of chapter storybook telling for a TV show, I thought it needed the time to percolate. This is a weird fucking show.
Oh man, as if it's so fucking weird.
It's very meta. There's a lot of fourth wall breaking. There's a lot of relationships. It's very dialogue heavy, but you need time with these characters because, like, and I want to get to him momentarily, but I'll tell you what, this is a good transition point to talk about the next character. Rita Haywood gave good face. Rita Farr, Elastigirl, played by April Bowlby, who, according to her wiki, was known for playing Candy on 2.5 Men, and Stacey Barrett on Drop Dead Diva, none of which I've watched before. So I have no idea who this woman came from. But she gives a spot-on performance of a 50s actress to the point where I actually thought they plucked her out of the 50s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They got in the time machine. They were like, hey, you, come here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she did a great job. I'm trying to think of some of the great moments that I remember from... I'm remembering at the end where she had to deal with trying to teach a bunch of kids. Mm-hmm. This was towards the end of the series where she's actually trying to teach a lot of kids how to act. And
an adolescent girl told me to fuck my face and die.
With a weed whacker.
What's so brilliant about her performance, her reading of Rita, is that she has the haughtiness of a Hollywood actress of the 50s, but it comes very naturally to the point where she's bonding with Brendan Fraser's Robot Man, or she's bonding with Cyborg, and you get that there's a real person in there struggling to figure out who she is because she's had to play this actress for so long. That's part of her origin, is that her parents she was a child star. Her parents kind of shoved her out there early, and they buried her true person so that she could be the successful actress. And she's now, and then since she got the elasticity powers, she's been sort of just struggling with, if I'm not an actress, what am I? Who was I even before all of this? Your personality doesn't harden as a child until you're a couple of years in. And I think at the time that she did this, you're led to believe that she's been doing the acting thing for a little while, even before you meet her in the show as a child. So it's hard to say and I think April Bowlby does a really good job of portraying this character really struggling with her identity, her sense of self.
Yeah. The other thing that I picked out of this, and this goes pretty much for the whole team, but really for Rita herself, the fact that she, didn't believe in being a team. And being successful as a team member of the Doom Patrol, which really, it's funny that they call this the Doom Patrol. When you find out, like, halfway through the season, there's a whole other team called the Doom Patrol. But again, this series is weird. But she, I think at one point, Cyborg's like just giving up on her, and it's like, we know you don't. It seems like she's doing anything and everything to not become involved with whatever missions that they're going out to try in order to find the chief or whatever.
But that's something to talk about right there, because here's the thing: when the Fantastic Four went into space and got exposed to cosmic rays and got their powers, the Thing was the one that was like, "My powers are a curse. I'm a rock lobster. I'm a rock monster." Rock monster.
Grab the Guitar Hero controller right now.
But human, like, they all, except for maybe the Invisible Girl, because comics are for boys and we hate girls, right? She was the only one who had struggled with her powers and trying to, it took Sue Storm like just years to master those powers.
Yeah.
And realize she's like the most powerful one of the bunch.
Yeah.
But like, you think about Reed Richards, who instantly knows how to keep himself solid and has mastery over his elasticity instantaneously. She gets exposed to this like toxic mist, and her control over her elasticity is directly related to her anxiety and her emotional state.
Yeah.
And she has no control over it. Like, she has to like meditate and breathe, and she has to use a mantra. The person who's breathing is me, in order to calm herself down. In order to, like, you don't see her really using her powers. To her, the time spent with the Chief was just hiding from the world.
Yeah, she's very vain. She doesn't want people to see her. I mean, obviously, it's pretty traumatic when she dove into the water or fell into the water, comes back up, and her skin's hanging off of her face.
Right.
This beautiful actress has now lost a career and is, crippled socially, pretty much.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you think about some of the other characters that are portrayed in TVs and movies, I'm pluralizing a lot these days. I'm very tired.
Yeah,
call Moffat. I'm being neurotoxic.
Oh shit.
Like, think about I don't know. You don't watch The Flash, but the Elongated Man.
Ralph Dibny, right?
Yeah, he kind of instantly knew how to use his powers too once he was exposed to them. What he learned throughout the last two seasons was how to do interesting things with them. Like, basically, he learns early on that he can change his body shape. So when we meet him, he's a fat schlub. But then he's like, "Oh, I have elasticity powers now." And they're like, "Yeah, if you focus, you can change your body shape." And he fashions himself into a in shape, skinny Ralph Dibny. And later on in the show, they show him changing identities altogether. So he's not just stretching or changing shape or flattening out. He's actually, like, he's imitated the Flash a couple of times to throw people off that scent. Or he's infiltrated people by becoming a bad guy or whatever. So there's an example of yet another character who isn't having the problem Rita's having. Rita's never shown any of those things. So she just feels like she's just a monster. Like, basically, this isn't so much a person with elasticity powers so much as she's a werewolf.
Yeah, and you don't really see her use her powers until, I think it's halfway through the season where she finally figures out.
I was going to say Cyborg Patrol is the only time I've ever seen her actively use her powers for anything, and that's the most hilarious scene ever.
Is that... Okay, I'm trying to think of the one. Is that where she has a...
She's hiding inside Robot Man.
Okay.
And then... Go ahead.
I was going to say, the one I'm thinking of is where they were protecting that kid from the cult. And something comes after them. It's like one of those... the straight razor nuns. I can't remember what they are. But anyway, she grabs one of them and shoves him up with her arm up
Yeah.
against the wall.
Yeah,
and,
she
and
stretched
that's the
her arm
first time,
once.
I think.
Yeah.
she does that one time, and that's actually, I think, the turning point where she starts to realize, okay, I can be a member of this team and I can do things to help out. I can control myself and actually use these powers for good. And also, she's invested in trying to save that boy. I mean, she was really invested in. But yeah, so that's halfway through the season. The rest of it, I mean, she's barely keeping herself intact. She becomes a full-on blob at the end of episode 1, and she can't control herself.
Right. She's in a flashback, she turns into a blob and smothers a producer who was trying to get naughty with her. But the reference that I'm making to Cyborg Patrol is the way to get Cyborg out, and and how they're going to infiltrate.
Oh, yes.
Not the
I remember
ASA.
now.
The ASA is Black Lightning. The Department of Normalcy.
Yes, Department of Normalcy.
The Ant Farm. That's what it's called. The way they're going to infiltrate the Ant Farm is they're going to have Robot Man get caught, and then she's hiding inside Robot Man, and as she's oozing out of him, she's like, oh God, oh, you smell. It's so good.
Yeah, and she did a great job. This, oh my goodness, I had her name here. What was it again?
April Bowlby.
April, yeah. And what else has she been in? Because,
like I said, 2.5 Men and Drop Dead Diva.
Okay, all right. Well,
that's what the quick link on it. I'm actually going to go to her Wikipedia page and see what else she's been in, because she, like I said, she's fucking phenomenal.
2.5 Men was, just like you said, Drop Dead Diva, 78 episodes. The rest of them are all bit parts, it looks like.
She has a lot of television credits. So she was in 2 episodes of Heathers in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
She was
4 episodes of How I Met Your Mother. Do you remember that at all? She was Meg.
Oh, okay. She was in 1 episode of The Big Bang Theory. She was in an episode of You're the Worst. She was in an episode of Mom, an episode of Psych, an episode of CSI. She was a main character in Drop Dead Diva, as I said before. She was in 17 episodes. She was a main role, then a recurring role. Main role in season 4, recurring role in season 3, guest star in seasons 10 and 12 of 2.5 Men. Manly men. As far as her film roles, she doesn't have a lot here. She's got nothing I've heard of. Unbroken Path to Redemption in 2018. 7 years before that, From Prada to Nada.
Yeah.
2009, The Slammin' Salmon.
It's a restaurant, isn't it?
We need to have a conversation about that.
All right.
Then 2008, All Roads Lead Home.
Okay.
So, yeah, she's mostly a television actress, it looks like.
All right. I'm just flipping through some of the TV time stuff. And I know I want to mention this right now before I forget, okay? This is probably one of the most faithful shows to the source material that I know. There are a lot of liberties taken with other shows like The Flash, Arrow, but if you look at... Now, granted, I haven't read a whole lot, but I can tell you that just going through some of the stills, people were comparing it to actual comic book stuff that was coming out in the 60s, 70s, or whatever from Doom Patrol. Animal... What was his name? Vegetable Mineral
Mineral Man.
Dude existed in the comics, and this is a 12-cent comic. August. Let's see. This is the Doom Patrol number 89. And that's how wacky. If you look at that dude on screen and you compare it to the comic, you would have never thought in a million years that they would do something like that and put it on TV.
Well, that was one of the funniest things about the Batman Lego movie, was the references to like the 4th and 5th tier obscure Batman villains, and they were all real.
See? And that's beautiful.
The Condiment Man.
An Animal Vegetable Mineral Man, okay, he shows up for 1 episode, has a pretty good little... You see him normal, and then you see him turn. But he never shows up physically, I don't think, for the rest of the series. However, when the TV's on, Animal Vegetable Mineral Man has got into some hijinks again.
Yeah. He's always in the background when the news is on, and I like the fact that his head's like his dinosaur head keeps biting his real head. It's good stuff.
Oh, it's great stuff.
So yes, one of the highlights of this show, and because I wasn't wazooey about her when she was just knitting all the time, and she was very much the I don't want to get involved character. But as things start to progress, as the thread that sort of moves the plot forward is that Mr. Nobody kidnaps the chief, Niles Calder, and so they're all kind of committed to bringing him back because he's like the one person who they believe at the time was there for them when they turned into hideous monsters. So she kind of gets on board out of necessity, but then things keep happening, like the kid that they save from the cult. I don't think she gets involved with Danny the Street, which we'll talk about, which is your favorite character, apparently.
Oh, jeez. So abstract, man. I'm telling you.
But she ends up. There's an episode where she, like I said, where she bonds with Robot Man, where he goes to his racing coach's funeral and tries to meet his daughter. There's the episode where, her and Cyborg kind of bond. She has kind of
they needed to.
She has kind of an off again, on again thing with Larry, who kind of takes over the role of I don't want to get involved in anything ever.
Yeah. I was going to say, if there's another person that's guilty of that, it's definitely Larry Trainer. He is. Now, Rita will kind of be like, oh, whatever. Sure, whatever, But Larry's like, what the fuck? I'm not even attempting to do anything. He's more on the nose about it.
So I can't say enough good things about April Bowlby as Rita Farr. I liked her arc in this, whereas I think Diane Guerrero gives a more dynamic performance. April Bowlby gives a solid performance and is very engaging to me and has a very interesting arc throughout this. Like Diane Guerrero, I think her character is Crazy Jane. I don't know has as much of an arc per se as she is just kind of a dynamic character that really propels the plot in a lot of different directions due to the actions, the decisions that she takes.
Mm-hmm. I will agree with you 100%.
Jovian Wade is a much better cyborg than whatever fuckface played him in the Justice League movie.
I still have not watched the Justice League movie.
You ain't missed shit.
I haven't watched Aquaman. I haven't watched the Justice League movie. Man, I just have no desire for some reason.
The Aquaman movie is worth a watch.
I heard that that's pretty good. It's, hearing the stuff about Cyborg in the Justice League movie and just how I'm glad that Jovian Wade is doing a decent job with him here.
I think he does. I think Jovian Wade, playing him as another character struggling with his identity, he's sort of been given this cyborg identity and he's adjusting to it, but there's all of this self-doubt and self-loathing. There's guilt over him having killed his mother, the mistrust of his dad, he feels like his dad is manipulating him. There's this man versus machine inner turmoil he's got going on. He's got to
deal with that. He's got to deal with the fact that he's potentially turning into a machine.
Right. And I think Jovian Wade did a really, really good job of making a thoroughly uninteresting character really interesting.
I agree. I didn't understand. I was right there with Sheehan. Why the hell is Cyborg with this team? And like I said on source material, I was like, they had to have just said, okay, well, he isn't in Titans, so we need to throw him somewhere. He is a member of the Justice League, for shit's sake, so we got to have him on some show. So they put him with Doom Patrol. And then I was like, why?
I think they looked, like I said, I made a crack on source material. They looked at all the black characters in the DC universe, like, well, Black Lightning's already got his own show. So, fuck, who's left? But I think also they knew Doom Patrol, based on its name, was only going to get a very small niche of comic book. Like, not everybody that reads comic books watches the comic book shows. We know plenty of guys that are like, all the shows stink.
Yep.
And I won't watch any of them. And I'm not spending the extra money to pay for DC Universe, but read comic books. So I think this was an uphill struggle, and I think I feel like in the original pitch, Cyborg wasn't in this, and they were like, we need one of the main Justice League characters to be in this as a hook. We need a popular character to hook the casual people, because they're not going to know what a fuck a Doom Patrol is. And they were like, well, we can't use Superman or Supergirl. We can't use The Flash. We can't use Batman. We can't use Wonder Woman. We can't use Aquaman. Who the fuck is left? Mm-hmm. You know, and I think they landed on Cyborg, one, because he was easy to do on TV with minimal special effects. And two, I thought his addition to the team, as somebody who is a known hero and a halfway competent hero dealing with this group of monsters and werewolves and fuck-ups, was a nice contrast. Yeah. Because as they're evolving and elevating, he's descending into madness.
And that's interesting. Because he seems like one of the most grounded characters that when he shows up, because he's been doing his own vigilante type justice on the streets of Detroit, was it?
Yes.
And so he is aspiring. That was what was neat, was he was aspiring to become a part of the Justice League, and Robot Man would just keep continually giving him shit about that, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
But he seemed like one of the most grounded characters, and when he comes in, it's almost like he's the natural leader of the Doom Patrol. And then as the series progresses, as the season goes on, he's just like you said, fighting that war within himself, doesn't trust his own dad. Close to the end of the season, there's a point where he almost kills his own dad. And you could see him trying to keep a hand on reality, number one, let alone be the leader that he's supposed to be. I really liked his addition to it. I didn't think it took away from it. I didn't think it took me out of it in any way. All my worry about why in the hell is he with the Doom Patrol, it went away. It felt natural. I think they did a great job of, if they're hoarding him in here, it was a really loose shoe.
I was really, what was I going to say? Yeah, I wasn't particularly excited to see him in this, but because I don't think Cyborg's a very interesting character to begin with, and he was done a huge disservice in Justice League. He really shines here. The kid that plays him, Jovian Wade, who
I think it's Joyvan.
Joyvan Wade.
Joivan.
Okay, so he first appeared in the BBC comedy Big School. He starred in the teen drama Youngers. He has a YouTube show called Mandem on the Wall, and he was in 2 episodes of Doctor Who. Terrific.
All right.
I really enjoyed him in this, and I thought his addition to the cast was essential. After the fact.
And they kind of built a plot around him too, where supposedly Crazy Jane had a vision of him, killing the Doom Patrol, or the Doom Patrol strewn about him. It was a painting and stuff like that. So you're wondering, is he going to turn? And of course, they thread that along too as well.
Yeah.
Is he going to be the one that turns on everybody?
So let's talk about the negative man.
Right.
Larry Traynor is played by Matt Bomer, who, what do you call it? Bomer voices the character and appears as Traynor in flashbacks, but the body double is played by Matthew Zuck.
Okay.
And I have to say, Matthew Zuck does a great job of emoting through the bandages.
Yeah. I mean, we have 2 actors here that do not have facial expressions. Brendan Fraser, you can't see his face move at all. I mean, his jaw doesn't even move. I think at maybe 1 or 2 spots where they open his jaw, but it's not like his mouth even moves. And this guy, Larry Traynor, is completely wrapped up in bandages at least 90% of the show. Every once in a while, he takes it off. You get this scary-looking Deadpool guy underneath because he's been horrifically burned. But, yeah, I mean, if there's anything that maybe took me out a little bit was the fact that you could really tell the dubbing sometimes. Like, okay, well, it almost felt like his voice was disembodied. It wasn't natural. And I understand. That's it, they have to do something there with it's TV for Pete's sake. They've got to at least make it sound. But again, I still follow the arc. I was still invested in Larry Trainer and his his story. It was kind of tragic.
I have to say, his story was probably the least interesting to me until he started to try to figure out that the negative energy in him was not a curse, and that was a thread through all of these characters. Is that these situations that they're in were not
and the
curses.
Powers are given.
Right, were not curses but blessings if they knew if they would just accept them. Everyone's got kind of a Hulk thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's this monster inside of me, and I have to learn to live with it, or neither one of us is going to be successful here. But he took some getting used to. Now, the subplot of him, you know, being a closeted homosexual in what was another one in the 40s or 50s, you know, and him sort of struggling with still being a closeted homosexual in 2020, you know, 2019.
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
by the way, all these characters are almost immortal. I mean, they have to be.
Well, that was a plot point. Was Niles Calder was looking for the looking for the Fountain of Youth, and as we learn in the very last episode, he was looking for the Fountain of Youth for his daughter.
Oh, okay, all right. Which, by the way, did they show her face?
No, not that I could see.
They did not show the daughter's face. Do you remember what Sheehan said she looked like?
She looked like an ape, and if you remember in the flashback, he's banging that like cave woman.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh man. All right, go ahead. I interrupted you.
He was getting himself some jungle boogie. Wow. Anyway, so yeah, he's probably the character I like the least, but that doesn't mean I didn't like him at all. And I actually have to say, I really appreciated the episode where he finally goes to see his ex-lover, who's like on his deathbed.
Yeah.
And they have a reunion, and he's like, "Yeah, I just, you know, I got over you. I wish you could have accepted." And they have like a series of they're not flashbacks as such; they are corrupted memories. You know, where he's like, "Why can't you just be with me?" And there's this conflict over, you know, Larry wants to be with him, but in private, you know, behind a door that says "Beware of the leopard." You know, whereas he wants to be out. You know, he wants to be like there's this debate over how you should handle yourself as a homosexual, but it's being had by people who grew up in a time where you could be killed for being a homosexual in this country.
Yeah. I'm trying to think really if I mean it was told great. I mean that was fine. I had a fine time watching that and watching him grow. I mean when he makes his way to Danny the Street, it almost looks like he's finally going to come out, which I think he does.
I
but,
love the Danny the Street episode only because of the song he performs.
Yeah, which was the opener to our source material episode.
Was it like We're All Weirdos or something like that?
Mm-hmm, yeah, and you know you got to think about this character, this guy who wraps himself in bandages, obviously because he thinks, and probably, he's pretty gross on the inside of those bandages. When you look at him, he's horrible, but it's also a very good allegory for what he feels himself, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's symbolism for people feeling like being a homosexual or transgendered makes them a monster.
Yeah, and that's, you know, if anything, I think that's told pretty well, in my opinion. But, I mean, you have his negative being power or whatever is, I can't even remember what they called him. I think Flex Mentallo was calling him Sparky at one time, but I can't remember what the thing's name is. But anyway, you know, that right there seemed like the most powerful person on the group at one point. I mean, that thing could fly through walls and zap people and was laying people out left and right. Mm-hmm. But you know, again, this is a character that's at war with the other side of themselves. So Larry Trainer and this negative entity are tied together, and they have to work on coming to some agreement to where they can
question. Do you think the show is gay positive? Like, do you think it's like a progressive show for people, you know, in the LGBTQ community? Like, would you recommend this as a show like the you know, people who are accepting of comic book shows would enjoy?
I guess. I mean, I would assume the story that was being told there was probably
Would resonate.
What's that? Would resonate? Yes. Yeah. I think it would be something that would probably resonate with some people. If I can see it, I'm sure that somebody who's had to go through that probably could see that. So
yeah, I wonder. I would like to, because I think anybody can appreciate this show if you're willing to sort of put the fact that it's a weird comic book show in the back of your mind and just sort of focus on the story being told, the very complex story being told, and a lot of the meta humor and fourth wall breaking that goes on. But but there is a part of me that would just that wonders, like, if you're gay or trans person, is this the kind of show you want to watch? Do you want to continue to see people tell stories about struggling with that part of your sexuality, that part of your identity, or are you just kind of past it? Like, can we tell a different story? Can there be another narrative for gay people besides we're all struggling with our sexuality? Just throwing that out there.
I hear you. Yeah, I mean, I can't really comment as to whether it's
speak for gay people, Jesse.
It's kind of impossible for me to do. I could definitely say one thing. This doesn't to me seem like it's portraying them in a negative light in any way. You could say it's for gay, trans, whatever, anybody that's dealing with an issue that they're trying to hide. But Larry Trainor just happens to be gay, and that's what he's going through. So, I mean, is it a good representation of somebody's struggle through it? In my opinion, yes.
So, speaking of struggling with things, you have Brendan Fraser, who, look, has not chosen a lot of great roles. Okay, Brendan Fraser,
Encino Man.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser, his filmography is spotty at best. And I thought
to the center of the earth.
I thought he was really brilliant in this.
I will agree. I enjoyed his portrayal of Robot Man. I enjoyed the everyday, like, holy shit, what have I gotten myself into? What the fuck? Which was repeated ad nauseum. At one point, I think at the end of episode 1 or the beginning of episode 2, where he's just yelling "what the fuck" over and over when that town sinks into the black hole.
Yeah, when it goes up the donkey's ass. What cracks me up about him and about this show is how much bravery it takes in telling weird stories, in the sense of, like, your point of view character is a guy whose brain was transplanted into a shitty robot.
Yes.
We're all Robot Man in this show.
We are. We really are. We are being represented by a brain in a robot suit. And, it's perfect. Because any time that he said that, that would have been exactly the same time I said it. Because it's just too much going on that you cannot even wrap your head around. And just imagine that being your reality.
So, like, whenever I'm telling somebody who is out of the loop on whatever thing I'm referencing, I always, I'll give this is a kind of a good example of this. When I was talking about getting a Green Lantern tattoo, if I could make it 5 years without a cancer reemergence, because green is the color of will, and I had the will to survive, and that was the connection for me. I remember. I think I told you this story. I was explaining it to one of my wife's friends who doesn't read comic books and thinks they're for children. And by the end of the explanation, I felt like a loser.
She's like, "Why are you getting that tattoo?" Oh, yeah, okay.
Because they don't get it and they're not making the connections, and and it's so funny because I look at this series, and this is one of those things where if you don't have Robot Man as part of the cast, just kind of who's this everyday? He's a NASCAR racer. He's fucking the maid. He's a shitty dad. He's kind of white trash, and you're like, okay, this is an average guy. This guy is a superhero for no other reason than circumstances were out of his control, and he just sort of fell into that role. Mm-hmm. And so we're all kind of Robot Man going through the because you're dealing with an actress who thinks she's a monster and a schizophrenic, and and the Invisible Man, and a cyborg, and it's like if you tell that story without a point of view character, it becomes way over the top esoteric.
Oh yeah.
But there's always Brendan Fraser to kind of bring it back down to, what's this guy's problem, sir? Well, he's an alien trying to steal a necklace from a wizard.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I'm going through stills, and right here I'm looking at the one where they ended up in, what was the name of this place? It was inside the little snow globe. I cannot remember the name of that place.
Like Valhalla or something like that. It was something Nordic.
It goes, God damn, this place and this fucking snow, and fuck, what the fuck? It's just over and over. It's just, it was
Nurnheim, by the way.
Nurnheim, there we go, Nurnheim. And, man, okay, so, yeah, just like you said, every man, NASCAR driver, loses his life, thinks his daughter's dead, then finds out, of course, that she's still alive. And in the process, you remember the therapy episode? Like, right after that rat swore revenge?
Admiral Whiskers, yes.
Admiral Whiskers! People, do you understand how insane this show is? Admiral Whiskers.
Admiral Whiskers and Ezekiel the cockroach, who will make sweet, sweet love later in the series.
I gotta get out of the rat and make it into the roach. So
good.
Oh, unreal. But anyway, I think our biggest touching moment was, you watch Cliff, Robot Man, who has, he has this overprotective kind of dad thing for Crazy Jane. And you obviously see that that's because he lost his own daughter. He believes she's gone, and he feels a connection to her.
Yeah, he is way overconsumed with guilt.
Yes, yeah. And it's neat to kind of watch them bounce off each other because Crazy Jane will go into a personality that was like, just don't touch me, fuck off, whatever. Hammerhead shows up, and then, but he's the one that goes down into the underground and brings her back. Right. The underground, ladies and gentlemen, is the inside of Crazy Jane's head. But Cliff goes through a lot of stuff, and even finds out that his daughter's still alive. Wrestles an alligator, grabs a watch, and brings it back to her.
He is a symbol for somebody struggling to regain his humanity.
Yes.
That when he was flesh and bone,
he can't eat anything. He can't. Right. One of the things is he can't shit.
But that's the thing. It's like when he was flesh and bone, he was an egocentric, instantaneous, need-driven, self-centered shithead.
Yep.
He was as inhuman as one could be, and that's his story.
Exactly.
When he had his humanity, he was inhumane. When he lost it, he went on this road. He went on this journey to regain his humanity. And part of being a human, we're social beings, and so he loses that connection to his daughter. He loses, he is a displaced father because he's believed to be dead. Mm-hmm. And he kind of takes on a father role to Jane out of a need for that connection.
Mm-hmm. That's tragic, man. That's Cliff's a tragic character because, according to what we see here, there's no going back. So he's at some point. I think during the series, he's trying to kill himself.
In comic books, there's always a way back.
Now comic books is a different story. But
they could have easily cloned his body. Actually, what I find really funny about this is what a shitty robot he is.
He is too. We didn't know the only parts that move are like his elbows and his fucking knees.
Like what? Like meanwhile, you have Cyborg, who's like a living computer, and it's so funny because I love the scenes of Robot Man and Cyborg together where it's just like, how did his brain get stuck in this walking aluminum tomato can? But Cyborg is this dynamic, robot man. It's it's so funny to me. By the way, they're like off the cuff sort of fourth wall breaking references to like, why don't you just email Batman?
I wish I could remember that one where he lost. I think he forgot the keys. Like Cyborg lost the keys or something, and Cliff speaks up. Is like, way to go, Aquaman. I bet Aquaman wouldn't have lost the keys. Right. Oh, so good.
That's some funny stuff.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Who's next?
Who is next? Well, let's go back to Alan Tudyk because I mean Timothy Dalton's fine.
Yeah, okay. Timothy Dalton. If you want to talk about Timothy Dalton just real quick, yeah, I mean, we get him in a few episodes. We definitely don't get him as much as the rest of the Doom Patrol. I mean, did you see the parallels? Remember how they mentioned how it was kind of like a parallel between the X-Men? Sheehan was talking about this, I believe. The X-Men and Doom Patrol. Well, here you have a headmaster in a wheelchair. Granted, Professor X seems a lot more, I would say, genuine and at least has better values than this guy does. But he's again searching for his daughter as well, and he gets captured by the villain of the series, Alan Tudyk's Mr. Nobody. And so that's kind of where we leave him. And then we have the episode where he, falls in love with Monkey Woman or whatever. That was, if there was a weak episode, it was that one. But the thing is that one ties into the narrative so much, it's kind of hard to say that's
you can't cut
the
it.
One that,
it's an episode that drags.
It did.
I didn't really find the Chief to be a real compelling character until the very end when he was basically like, yeah, I was part of this organization that was creating metahumans for top secret mission purposes, and then I had a daughter with a monkey woman, and I needed to extend her life, and so I began finding people to cause their imminent demise, and so in order to study them to see if what I did to them could save my daughter. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you're a terrible human being. Okay, got it. But you don't really find that out till the end. Nope.
Not much else to say. He did find there was some range of emotion every once in a while. About the biggest range of emotion was when he was watching his team die over and over and over.
Yeah.
That was about it.
Timothy Dalton will always be Prince Baron to me.
Right, go ahead and tell me the reference, because I don't know.
Flash Gordon, baby.
Flash Gordon. Ooh, that's a deep one.
Flash.
For me, anyway. He'll save every one of us.
Stand for every one of us. Anyway, so let's talk about Alan Tudyk. Alan Tudyk has some of the best lines of this entire show. Sorry, welcome to the shit show. I started watching Doom Patrol, I think, the day after my infusion, and I'm on the bed laughing hysterically.
Oh, man. Alan Tudyk as the narrator / Mr. Nobody. Oh, perfect role. Perfect role for this guy. I want to read to you here, in the bus, Timothy Dalton's character, I believe this is before the black hole opens, and, Alan Tudyk's going off as the narrator, and Timothy Dalton's character, Chief looks back at him and says, "Who are you talking to?" And Mr. Nobody he goes, "Grant Morrison fans, Reddit trolls with DC subscriptions, and the 3 new fans who stuck around after the donkey farts." Can you fault this guy's performance in here? Because I'll give it to you. You probably know better than I do. If you could find a fault with how he did things, you tell me.
Well, it's so funny because Alan Tudyk has a lot of voice roles. But he's an okay looking dude, but he has such a great voice. But this was such an over the top performance, and it's so good, and the show needed it. Because for all the relationship drama, there needed to be at least one character who, and he has such great lines in this. Like, he's talking about he's talking about the show itself at one point. He's like, this angst-ridden, meandering, premium cable shit.
Yep.
I died laughing at that. I was like, okay. There's a lot of there's a lot of fourth wall breaking, like I said before. There's some really fun stuff in here, like Danny the Street. That's that's very creative, and I love the musical aspect to that. Where you have Larry sort of tempted to come out and embrace his sexuality, and he's like, and then he's right back in the box again. But you get this extended dance sequence of all these drag queens just running around dancing. Oh, it's so good. Mm-hmm. It's a great song too. But then you have later on where they're trying to figure out where Niles is, and they're like, oh, the key to get there is Flex Mentala, who we need to talk about,
Oh, yes, we cannot forget about Flex.
We need to talk about Flex Mentallo. But he literally like sends them to the white space between panels in a comic book.
That's so cool. You know, there's so many abstract ideas that are put forth in this series that I never thought they would even touch. Yeah. I didn't think they would even touch Danny the Street. I was like, that is way too out there for them to even attempt to try and show a viewer on TV.
I was trying to tell my wife about that. I'm like, Melissa, there's a character that's a sentient, genderqueer street.
It's the craziest fucking thing you can ever say.
And she 3 times was like, "What do you mean by street? What's a street?"
Exactly.
Like literally, like the thing we're driving on.
It's just so crazy.
Like
and
she couldn't accept that. Like I understand that you're speaking English, but the words don't make sense.
So, I had the opportunity to have my wife hop in the middle of this season because, number one, I was trying to binge through this. And it just so happened she got off work, and I was like, listen, you have to watch some Doom Patrol with me because I have to watch some Doom Patrol in order to get through this before the show Thursday. So we watched 3 episodes, and I've never seen my wife so disinterested in anything that was on screen. And of course, again, it was in the middle of things, and one of them happened to be the fucking Monkey Woman episode. So
not a good one to start off with.
Nah, I'm afraid not. She's not going to be invested there. But you know, for me, I think if you were able to follow this from the beginning towards the all the way through to the end, a genderqueer transvestite street you'll have a grasp that's a potential after the first 2 or 3 episodes when you watch this. That okay, everything is, all the cards are on the table. Anything goes.
It's a show that truly embraces its abstractness.
It does. And just starting with Mr. Nobody himself, who has some kind of, he is the narrator, but what you find out is that even as the narrator, the characters that you're watching can hear him. They can hear him.
I love that they play with that.
Yes.
That's a fun thing that they play with, because at one point Rita starts narrating because she doesn't want, and it's a very woke 2019 thing. She's like, I'm not going to have this man tell my story. Mm-hmm. So she starts narrating her own story, and he's like, what the fuck? And he's like utterly depowered by it.
Yep.
But then they turn that around.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I want to talk about his. Let's talk about his motivation, because in order for people to understand him as the villain, we got to explain why.
Well, he kidnapped Niall for revenge.
Mm-hmm.
And this was this was early on in the season where I was kind of teetering on the fence if I was going to continue watching it or not, outside of needing to watch it to talk about it. Like, this show, the pacing of the show is a little off. I have to say something negative about it. There's a lot of world building that has to happen. There's a lot of setting of themes and everything, and so the show kind of takes a while to get started. Mm-hmm. And then such weird crap happens. You're like, wait, did the whole street just go up a donkey's ass? Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. When that donkey hacks up Crazy Jane, you're like, okay, did not see that coming. And the rest of the series, you're going to be saying that. I did not see that coming, until you get to the very end when you see a lot of people. Oh, wait a second. We'll talk about Flex Mentallo here in a few. But you didn't get that joke. That'll come around, Mark. That'll come around here in a few. Also, the other thing is that he's like a dejected villain. He was. Do you remember that episode where
he got kicked out of the Brotherhood of Evil?
And he's like trying to impress this girl, and which I don't know if it's his wife or his fiance at the time, and she's having none of it. She's like, well, you go right back in there, march right back in there, and tell Mr. Mind or whoever the hell the lead guy of the Brotherhood of Evil, tell him you want your job back. He's like, that's not exactly how this works. He's like, I'm lucky to be out of there alive. So
yeah, she basically like just neuters him at the table, and he, and so a lot of this is him trying to prove himself, and they use that against him. But yeah, there's something between him and Niles where Niles somehow wronged him in another life, and this is revenge. It was pretty simple. After that, it's just sort of all over the place.
And he's a damn powerful character. I mean, to be a narrator controlling everything that's going on in all these people's lives, it's very powerful. And Alan Tudyk is like the most. He can portray this villain like he should be. I mean, over the top, the laughter and the monologues, great stuff.
So let's talk about Flex Mentallo and him causing a mass orgasm on Danny the Street.
Like I said, we come around to it, Mark.
Yeah. So the guy playing him, Devon Chandler Long, I thought he did I don't think there's no link to a Wikipedia page on him, so I don't think he's been in a lot of things, but I thought he did a really great job as Flex Mentallo. I thought the use of Flex Mentallo as sort of this like gatekeeper to another dimension and all of that, and him. It's a funny concept, and they don't overuse it. They use it just enough to make it funny and interesting.
He's such a wholesome dude too.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's walking out there. You see the flashback to the '60s where he's walking out there with his wife, and he's in the leopard Speedo or whatever it is.
Yes.
And it's just like he's just walking down, no problem. Everybody's like, "Hey, it's Flex Mentallo." And then some kid's cat gets stuck up a tree, and all he has to do is flex a muscle, and the tree bends down. Which is, as far as crazy superpowers go, I don't know if that's kind of a 1 or a 10 in this show. I have no idea. But regardless, he was so wholesome. All he wants to do is watch his soap operas. Lost his memory. And they understand that he holds the key to try and get to Mr. Nobody, but they've got to get his memory back. And they find him at the ant farm. And, a really, really powerful character who ends up being an amnesiac. They help him get his powers back. And then, of course, he helps them get to Mr. Nobody. But, top moment of the show, of the whole season, is when Flex is trying to get them to the white between the panels.
He flexes the wrong muscle. The entire town has a mass orgasm set to the song All By Myself.
This wholesome dude who's watching everybody just lose their shit around him, and he looks like he's just mortified, like, oh my gosh.
I done a bad thing.
I flexed the wrong muscle.
But the best part of that, though, is Robot Man faking an orgasm because he didn't want to be left out.
Yes. Great stuff.
All right, so one last character I want to talk about, and then I think we can start to wrap up here. Tommy Snyder.
Beard Hunter?
Yes,
Beard
as
Hunter.
Ernest Franklin, the Beard Hunter. First of all, the first time he eats the beard hair.
Get to the bathroom.
First time he eats the beard hair, I almost threw up.
Drain scum is what they called it. I knew. As soon as I saw that, I was like, Mark is not going to like this at all.
I had to avert my eyes. I couldn't do it.
Oh, and it's just like a close-up, and they pulled no punches. It's not like they turned the camera away. No, you watch this man, and it's just like, I can't believe what I'm watching right now. But it gets better. You see a cockroach and a rat make out later, so
less disturbing than him eat the... Okay. Anyway, the actor is really funny. The stuff with the Beard Hunter I thought was very funny and very out there and very Doom Patrol-ish, so I just wanted to give him a quick mention. Overall, so the series ends with they rescue Niles. They end up having to team with Mr. Nobody against Admiral Whiskers and Ezekiel the Cockroach, who betray Mr. Nobody.
I can tell you that the second to last episode I really liked, and then when the last episode hit, it felt like a whirlwind. I mean, it felt like that should have been another episode or two for me to kind of get a grasp on it. There's just so much shit happening.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're teaming with them, and I was like, okay, well, all right. I mean, it's Doom Patrol. What do I expect? It's going to be insanity.
So it ends with the cliffhanger ending of Danny the Street becoming Danny the Brick, and everybody but I think one character having been shrunk to Admiral Whisker size.
Yeah, Larry Trainer, I think, was the one that made it out okay. The one that was still regular size after all that.
So that's all well and good. And they rescue Manape's daughter, Dorothy Spinner.
Dorothy Spinner, the ape-faced girl.
Yes, so There's plenty of grist for the mill for a second season if they are allotted one by Warner Brothers. My favorite last thing, and then we're gonna wrap up. My favorite episode was Cyborg Patrol. It was the one episode where I had to stop watching because it was like dinner time or whatever, but I had to know what happened next. And there was no other episode where I cared.
Okay.
There was no other episode where it was like, there were definitely times where I needed to take a break from the show. I needed to kind of walk away, do something else, watch something else. Just like, okay, I've had enough of this for a little while. And I feel like that's like, well, I'm sending mixed messages because it's a very well written show. It's an extremely well acted show, but it's a bit much at times. And this is not one of those things where, I think like, I want to say like Glow, I watched all in one night. And like every episode was like, what happens next? What happens next? This episode, like Flash, I don't binge. I watch as it comes out live. And that's one where like I can't wait to see the next episode usually. I'm really anxious to see what's going to happen next. With this one, and I was like, 3 episodes was about my limit. I had to, so I broke this up into like chunks of 3 or 4 episodes at a time. Cyborg Patrol was the only one where like I wanted to know what was did he really kill his dad or didn't he? And I had to go to the Wikipedia page just to get through dinner.
Oh wow, it was that bad. I was really worried. I was like, man, if he killed his dad, that is some fucked up stuff. He is going to have to live with that. That character is going to be broken for a while.
Yeah. And
we find out that it's not the case, thank goodness. But whew, what a thing to live on.
Sure. What was your favorite episode?
I'm trying to think of. I think my favorite one was the 2-parter where they go to find the actual Doom Patrol. Mm-hmm. I can't remember if it was a 2-parter or a 1-parter, but either way, they go to find this old team, which was the Doom Patrol, and they walk into this school, and everybody is, there's students there. They're giving Crazy Jane a hard time, and she's trying to, they're just basically trying to find some clues. I think Mr. Nobody led them there.
Yes, that was so that Jane would lose faith and not try to find Niles.
Yeah, and then as things progress, you find out that this school's been shut down, and the people that were supposedly leading the school, which were former members of the Doom Patrol, who you thought were successful heroes, were not. As a matter of fact, they lost their first battle against Mr. Nobody, and from that point on, they had been just left in this decrepit state. And I wish I could remember the name of the guy from the Doom Patrol that had the mind powers, but either way, they were projecting this image to keep them kind of in a state where they were comfortable because they were left in a state of agony afterwards.
Steve Dayton, otherwise known as Mento.
That's a weird name.
Yeah.
All I could think of was the Fresh Maker.
Yes.
So, but yeah, you see them, you're like, oh, Rita ends up running into him, but what I figured out immediately, I was like, something's wrong here because Mento is not like 70 years old. Why isn't he 70 years old? And then, of course, we find out that, it's a projection and he's actually 70 in a wheelchair and basically almost a vegetable. Pretty sad, but I think it was a fun episode because they have to deal with a lot. So there you go. There's my favorite episodes.
All right. My second favorite episode was definitely Jane Patrol.
Yeah, you liked that dive deep into the psychosis of Crazy Jane, which was fun to see all, and I mean all of her personalities at one point.
If I could just make a public service announcement, please stop. Don't fuck your children.
Ugh.
This is the result. It's a terrible thing. You will cause schizophrenia. Please don't have sex with your children.
Come here, sweetie baby. Come here. Was that what he kept saying over and over? I'm like, oh, man,
Baby K. Come here, Baby K. Ugh.
Uncomfortable.
Yes. I'm really glad they didn't make that like graphic or anything. Like it's just like they achieved an appropriate level of creepiness with just him standing in the doorway.
Before we close, I have a question for you because we usually talk about these things, especially with movies. Are they going to bring in people to want to read the comic? If you were to sit down and watch Doom Patrol like you did, I mean, does this kind of spur you to like, oh, maybe I will pick up a Doom Patrol comic?
The show alone, no. The show in conjunction with Sheehan explaining the Grant Morrison run, I want to read the Grant Morrison run.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Now I want to find time to grab a hold of the Grant Morrison run and start with that at some point.
Yeah, maybe.
So, season 2.
I was going to say maybe if they announce a season 2, we'll save it for that. And even though I shied away from it because I didn't think anything written before 1990 we were going to really enjoy, maybe we'll take a chance on it. We'll take on me, Jesse.
Grant Morrison, I think, has been around. So this is the 80s, late 80s, I think, 90s. So I don't think we're going to hurt if we read that.
I think it'll be fine. All right, so that's that. That's our take on Doom Patrol tonight. Highly recommend it. For people who, if you're like a Twin Peaks kind of person, Dark Highway, you enjoy the abstract, the esoteric. If you're willing to give something a try and not be prejudiced against something that the source material is a comic book, I don't think you can miss with Doom Patrol. It's extremely well done.
I agree. It's a great representation of what we got on the pages to the screen, and you'll have a good time. I mean, if you like wacky, weird, fun stuff, this is right up your alley.
All right. So this past week, we referenced it already. We talked about the Doom Patrol comic from 2016, I believe it was. 2016.
Yep, Gerard Way, the lead singer of My Chemical Romance.
Yes, this was the Magnificent Seven of DC Comics.
Kurosawa? Was that what it was?
Something like that, yeah.
Did I remember that? Okay, all right.
So we did a Damn You Hollywood for Crawl. We reviewed the Texas Hippie Coalition, where Jesse and I got into a sissy slap fight over it.
I didn't like it.
Comic-Con's going on right now.
Uh-oh.
So Monday, in addition to Jesse and I reviewing a Cloak and Dagger comic, you'll also get a full panel of Radulich and Broadcasting All-Stars running down a list watch-along of all the trailers that have come out throughout Comic-Con weekend, such as Top Gun Maverick and Cat, which I'm all in on.
Nice.
Can't wait for Cats. The new It trailer, so Jay and Silent Bob reboot, whatever else we got, that comes out between now and the end of Comic-Con. We'll do a watch-along for all of those trailers, and that'll go up sometime Monday night, along with our source material on Cloak and Dagger. We'll have a Lion King review, Sabaton, The Great War, and Jesse and I are back for yet another weird-ass show. What do you think of Cloak and Dagger Season 2 so far? Weird than Season 1, right?
Yeah, I am at episode 4. So she just went into the... she went into Cloak, and she just came back out. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Wait till you get to the Endless What If episode.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
So, speaking of Endless What Ifs, we reviewed AEW and Evolve's 10th anniversary show. We reviewed Extreme Rules. Those are up in the archives. This weekend is some boxing. The undercard of Pacquiao Thurman, which is Plant versus Lee, will be on Fox. And Pat and I will do live coverage of that.
Okay. Very good. Hey, keep an ear out, ladies and gentlemen. Me and Chris Armstrong are doing a little something for the Unspoken Decade that's getting hosted right here on the Radulich in Broadcasting Network. We are going to be dropping what we're going to consider... The title of said series is going to be Unspoken Issues. That's what we're deciding to roll with. To tie in with the greatest 90s comic book website out there, the Unspoken Decade. And our 0 issue of said podcast will be dropping most likely next week. So if, it's another comic book podcast, probably going to be bi-weekly. If you're into comics, give it a listen there, especially 90s comics. Me and Chris are going to be taking a look at just a single issue and giving you about a half hour, 45 minutes of our thoughts, fun facts, all sorts of great stuff there. So keep an ear out for that. And, as Mark said, do source material. It's a weekly show here on the old network where we talk comic book story arcs and our thoughts on them after we read them.
All kinds of ill shit.
Oh, yes, all kinds of ill shit. They got the ill communication. Just like, what's her name from Punisher? Ma Nucci.
That's right, yeah.
Ma Nucci.
That celestial being. All right.
Now, let's get out of here, Mark.
Give it to me. Give me the canned plugs. Remember, tell people about that pod coin.
Oh, yeah, that's
shit.
right.
Give me some
That's
pod
right.
coin.
Ladies and gentlemen, go give the Radulich in Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts that we have to offer. You can find us on just about any platform, but if you're going to choose one, I would suggest you choose Podcoin. Not just because we want you to. No, ladies and gentlemen, you can get paid for listening to podcasts, and that is by using the app Podcoin. Give it a little look-see. Check it out. See what you think. It might be something you're interested in. I know I listen to podcasts a lot. Most likely, if you're listening to this show right now, you probably do too. Why not get paid to do it? Why not?
Have you been able to find all the podcasts you listen to on Podcoin? Because I found almost all the ones I listen to on Podcoin.
I think just about every single one of them are on there. It's an aggregator that grabs everything they can. So you should have no problems finding what you can on there, what you want to look for. So, but yeah, with that being said, Mark Radulich, I'm ready to go.
All right. Folks, thanks for joining us here on this TV party tonight. Our review of Doom Patrol for Jesse Starcher, The Disapproving Dad. Be well, be safe, and behave.
With Dunkin' Go-Tos, you can get a great deal on two of your favorites, like 2 egg and cheese wraps for $2, 2 bagels with cream cheese spread for $4, and 2 bacon, egg, and cheese croissants for $5. In my opinion, it's a deal that's pretty tough to beat. That's just if you want my go-to cents. If you don't want my go-to cents, it's go too late. Dunkin' Go-Tos, a great deal for $2, $4, or $5. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply. With Dunkin' Go-Tos, you can get a great deal on two of your favorites, like 2 egg and cheese wraps for $2, 2 bagels with cream cheese spread for $4, and 2 bacon, egg, and cheese croissants for $5. In my opinion, it's a deal that's pretty tough to beat. That's just if you want my go-to cents. If you don't want my go-to cents, it's go too late. Dunkin' Go-Tos, a great deal for $2, $4, or $5. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply.